He is PJ Carlesimo. How are you, Coach?
Excellent, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing fine. What do you think the main headline, other than obviously Virginia wins the game, coming out of the national championship game is from last night?
I just think great tournament. I think it was one of the most competitive tournaments we've had. I think we had more, one possession, overtime, buzzer beater games. It was Pete Rozelle would have been happy. I just think there were more teams had a chance to win it this year than almost any year we've seen. And this team, they just refused to lose. Rich, they dodged bullets left and right in this tournament. But anytime they were down to they had to have the last shot or they had to make a play, they were able to do it. So I'm super impressed. I think it's great. I feel badly for Texas Tech. To be fair to Virginia, even if Owens had been healthy, Virginia still could have won. To be fair to Texas Tech, could they have won with the healthy Owens? Yeah, maybe. But it was, again, you need a little bit of luck, too. And Virginia was great, but they had their share of luck also.
Yeah, they sure did. They looked dead in the water at times against, obviously, Purdue. We know what happened with Auburn. And then last night
Three different times, exactly.
And then last night, down 3, and Hunter hit that clutch, crucial 3. And then overtime hit. And replay played a role. I hit this at the top.
Replay played a major role.
I'm a huge advocate of replay in the NFL, and the rules that were made in the NFL recently for pass interference now being reviewable, even if it's not called. I'm an advocate of that. What I'm not an advocate of is using replay in instances in just certain parts of the game, but you're not allowed to look at it in other parts of the game. And that was a crucial moment last night where what would have been off of Virginia and Texas Tech ball with, say, 8 minutes to go in the second half, or even 3 minutes to go in the second half, becomes Virginia's ball. And that was kind of a turning point, PJ. What are your thoughts?
It was a major turning point. And, again, it was a replay that took so long. They looked at it from so many different angles. And at the end, did they get it right? Yeah, I think they got it right. It looked like it literally hit his fingertip. It was amazing, but it's hard. The thing that bothered me from a coaching standpoint, not especially in this tournament, but just in general with replay, it's taken the element of saving your timeouts. Like one team maybe saves the timeouts, the other team can't. And it's not a question of like if you're a coach you weren't smart enough. Sometimes you just got to use timeouts in the course of the game to stop runs and to do things like that. Well, now with these replays in the last 2 minutes, which, there's a lot more of them, it's almost like you're not rewarded for the fact that you didn't have to use your timeouts, and you get these free timeouts, like where the guys go over and huddle with the coach, and if anything, there's more timeouts in the game now because of replays, and that's always bothered me a little bit. You want to get the calls right, but you've kind of taken the element of having timeouts or not having timeouts left at the end of the game out the window.
No, I know, and I'm just wondering, from a coach's perspective, would you be up for? Because to me, the issue is also just inequality. That would have been a certain call at a certain part of the game outside of 2 minutes. It shouldn't be that call just because it's inside 2 minutes. So, what about the idea of giving coaches the ability to challenge during a game, and if you're wrong, it's a technical free throw for the other team?
I like that. I just think that you need to balance it right now. I do want to get calls right, and we've got technology that allows us to do that. But there's got to be a limit, and I think that what football does that, don't they? The way if you think it was a challenge, like that
right.
one there wouldn't have been challenged. It's a question then of believing your kids, because so many times players go, hey, it was off me or something like that. You have to drill your kids in those situations to look. Don't say something unless you know you're right. But I would like that idea where the coach has to make a decision. And if it's the right decision, good. You're not penalized for it. But if you are, it just stops you from having, infinite replays, particularly at the end of the game, and plays that are just as important at other times, go unchallenged.
Westwood One's PJ Carlesimo here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I said at the top of the program and on Twitter yesterday that we may see a 1 seed lose to a 16 seed again, but we'll never see a 1 seed lose to a 16 seed and then come back the next year and win it all. I'm wondering what you thought of the coaching job of Tony Bennett to just keep it all together. It's been a calendar year journey that has been remarkable. I wonder what your thoughts on that would be, PJ.
Well, it was. I don't think he did a good job. I thought he did a great job. But to be honest with you, I'm I guess in disagreement with everybody with the worst to first. Tony didn't do a good job. He did a great job, but it reminded me a little bit. Remember a couple years ago when San Antonio got beat in Miami, and that kind of fueled them the next year, Pop's team, and then they came back and won the championship the next year. I thought that was exactly what we had here. And, everybody forgets Hunter didn't play in the game last year, so it doesn't take away from what UMBC did, but he didn't play in that game. That was a major factor, like Owens playing impaired last night. I'm not surprised that a number one with as many underclassmen as Tony had last year comes back. I mean, they won like 60-plus games in 2 years. So I really am not surprised, and I'm actually a little surprised that everybody is making such a big deal out of, hey, they got beat in the first round last year to the first number one. They're still a number one. They were a number one last year, and they're a number one this year with virtually the entire team back, including their best player who didn't play last year. Number ones are supposed to win the tournament. So I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not diminishing at all what Tony and UVA did. But I'm a little surprised at that narrative, to be honest with you. I think, like, from day one, we all said, if you had to pick 3 or 4 teams, I had Gonzaga and UVA. It's easy for me to say that now, but nice. I mean, if anybody cared about watching our interviews in the beginning of the year, everybody thought Virginia had a chance to win it this year. So I'm not surprised. He's not a good coach. He's a great coach. They had this team back. It was a beautiful team. And you know what also was nice, Rich, to see the 3- and 4-year teams win. It's nice to see a team that stays together for a little bit. And what Chris Beard did with new guys in 1 year, I had them in the East Regional last year where Villanova beat them to keep them from going to the Final Four. I mean, he's got to add Mooney and Owens. Now, obviously, they were great pieces to add. But that's a team that I think no one expected to be this good this year. He's done an unbelievable job also.
PJ Carlesimo, Westwood, a few more minutes left with him, and as he's making his way out of Minneapolis right now. You led me to my next question here. I mean, you got Jerome and Guy who are juniors. Hunter, you mentioned, wasn't there last year. This was his second go-around there at Virginia. And then Chris Beard's Texas Tech team taking a kid from Italy, and then two transfers who had graduated from other programs in Owens and Mooney, and the freshman-laden one-and-done Duke team didn't even make the Final Four. Do you think we are seeing, in a potentially copycat situation, what other schools can do? You mentioned parity. Have we seen a watershed moment maybe away from the one-and-done attempts to win a championship?
I don't think so, because I think people are still going to recruit him. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the NBA going forward if they pass that, where they can go directly from high school. But I think most people are still, if you have a chance to get a great player, you're going to take him. Sometimes, like, you get surprised. Last year, I think Omari Spellman going into the East region in Boston was probably iffy whether he was going to come out or not. Well, he played so well the last 4 games, he came out. Dante DiVincenzo wasn't coming out going into the championship game, and he comes out. So it's hard to predict, when these guys are going to jump. So I think people are still going to recruit the one-and-dones. And truth be told, Rich, very easily, both Kentucky and Duke could have been there. I did the Kentucky-Auburn game for Westwood, and obviously Duke could have very easily won and been there. We could have had a Duke-Kentucky game. I can't remember. No, they wouldn't have been matched up, I don't think. But, I mean, we could have had those two in the finals, and the narrative would be, hey, you need one-and-dones to win a championship nowadays. So I think it's that fragile. I think people are going to continue to recruit the one-and-dones because they're just too good. And, frankly, sometimes you don't even know they're one-and-dones when you get them. He's a very good player, and he has a spectacular year or a great NCAA, and the next thing you know, he's coming out. So, but I do like the parity. We all said in the beginning of the year, when you're a coach, you're a player, we can win it this year. That's always the narrative. I think there are more teams now. I guarantee you Tony and his team said that back in October when they started practice. But I think there were more teams this year said that and believed it, and it was actually true. Now, Auburn to me was a surprise. Bruce Pearl did not a good job, did a ridiculous job. But I think there were more teams going into this tournament that could look in the mirror, or they were looking in each other's eyes saying, hey, we're good enough to win this thing. So I think that's what made for such a great tournament. I mean, there were so many good basketball games in this tournament this year.
And then there were the controversial, again, calls, like the one at the end of Auburn and Virginia, and then the one at the end of Purdue and Tennessee, where a lot of people are wondering, how do the referees not swallow their whistles? And I ask this with ultimate respect, PJ Carlesimo. Did you, at any point in time, just look at these people complaining about last-second calls by whistles that should be swallowed and say, cry me a river? Did you at any point think that in the back of your head?
Well, I like the way Bruce handled it, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, the other thing that people sometimes forget a little bit, the referees that are working in the tournament are the best ones. They were picked because of, what they've done, their body of work over their careers and what they've done during the year. And during the tournament, the best ones advance. So you can't complain about officiating in the NCAA tournament. It's like complaining about the refs in the NBA playoffs. Only the best refs are there. And they're trying the best they can. And, I hate, it's fun. Westwood always, Howie apologizes to me, Howie Deneroff, our major domo at the beginning every time, because he goes, I got to ask you. So we got to ask you, look what happened in the Auburn game. Look what happened in this game. We got to ask you about Ramil Robinson and Seton Hall. And, that's always going to be. But you can't change it. So you got to move on. And as long as officials are there, those judgments, those calls, they got to make it. You're going to get some that people are not going to like.
So you think Rick Barnes and Bruce Pearl are going to be asked about this 30 years from now, too?
Not as much as we are, because ours was in the championship game. But in those two areas, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Ours is a little more national because it was the championship game. In their league and in the circles where they are, they're going to be asked a ton. There's no question about that. But hopefully it doesn't linger as long as the Seton Hall, Michigan one.
Well, last one for you, PJ. I want to ask you about the association because you are well-versed in that with your work with the worldwide leader in sports. As we are getting set for the playoffs, how real are the Bucks? Do you think they can take it down if certainly the Warriors advance from the West?
They're real. They're good enough to win it. Really, a lot of what I said, more teams have a chance this year. I still think Golden State's the team to beat. But when you watch the ups and downs they had all year, I think they're more vulnerable than they've been any of the last couple. Having said that, that's still the team I'd go with if I can only pick one. The Bucks have been the best team in the league the entire year. And they haven't done it with mirrors. They've pummeled a lot of people. The only question, and it's a big question, it's a valid question, playoff experience. Not just being in the playoffs. So few of them have been in the playoffs, but even less have enjoyed playoff success. And that what the Warriors have done is going to help them a ton. Milwaukee's got their hands full, even coming out of the East. I do think they'll do it. I do think they're legit. Are they good enough to win the whole thing? Yes, but it's really hard. Usually, your first time in as a group, and all the things that you're going to have to. You need luck again too. We talked about Tariq Owens. Injury is going to play a big thing. Malcolm, you just saw what happened to the Bucks late in the year. So sometimes health plays a huge factor in the NBA playoffs. But I'm looking forward to it because I do think the teams in the West feel, whether they're correct or not, they feel Golden State's vulnerable. Like they're saying, hey, we can get them this year. And I think there's an element of truth to that. But I'm interested in watching the Celtics and the Warriors because I'm curious whether their playoff experience and their playoff success is going to be a bigger factor and kind of, help them put behind them the fact that both of them had, by their standards, like kind of inconsistent regular seasons.
Is Giannis your MVP?
Yes. Yeah. Solely because, first of all, obviously he's great, but I know the argument for Harden and whoever else you want to put in there. Best player on the best team, to me, is always the MVP. Unless they don't have a candidate, if it's somehow a really balanced team, doesn't have a great player. I'm old school. He's the best player on the best team in the league. He's the MVP. In my mind, it's not even close, with all due respect to what James Harden has done.
PJ, safe travels. Always appreciate our chats. Let's chat during the NBA playoffs.
I'd love to, Rich. Thank you very much. Great being with you.
You got it. It's PJ Carlesimo of Westwood 1 and ESPN jetting off from the Final Four.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.